Welcome, folks, to Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in your way becomes your way. My name is David Susan. I'm your host, and I want to welcome our guest, Relly Nadler. He's a trailblazer in the field of leadership development, leveraging the power of emotional intelligence, and he's transformed executives and organizations in over 225 companies. He's an inspiring and thought-provoking keynote speaker, psychologist, author of 8 best-selling books. He's a master executive coach, and he's dedicated his career to helping leaders break free from the shackles of autopilot, which we're going to talk about, and reach their full potential. He says, if you stay on autopilot, you stay average. Unfortunately, we're on autopilot over 95% of the time. Man, ain't that the truth? He believes you can be more emotionally intelligent in moments with the right strategies, utilizing his suite of proprietary tools, such as turbulence tools. Got to say that again. Such as turbulence tools to master the moment, emotional audit, NAME, that's NAME. We'll have to find out what that is an acronym for, and much more. And today we're going to explore some of those tools and learn a little bit more about Inside the Leader's Mind. Relly, welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind.
Hey, David. It's great to be here. I'm excited to share some of those tools and this conversation that we have here.
Well, I'm excited to have you and learn a little bit more. Where I'd love to start, and we'll dig into the tools in a little bit, but where I want to start is for people who don't know, how do you explain what you do and how you help, especially
Yep.
executives?
So probably the key thing is in the moment, how can you be your best? And so we know we work with executives and leaders all the time. Everybody's back on autopilot. And so as we're on autopilot, if we don't get a chance to think clearly about what we want and be strategic, we often have what I would call stinking thinking. So a lot of my job is to help them take this time, and we'll talk about this. They don't have the time. And so slow thinking happens when they talk to you, happens to me. And this is where they can really think deeper and come up with better solutions.
Love it. I love it. Now, you have worked with literally thousands of leaders. Is that correct?
Right, right,
Like,
definitely.
I think, did I see this number wrong somewhere? Like 27,000? Did I get that wrong somewhere?
Yeah, no, that's right. And yeah, I think going way back in my career, and I'm sure you've done this too, David, just the amount of individual sessions, group sessions that I've had, so I've been doing executive coaching now since 1995. So
And that
I'm
is
30 years.
that is a lot of people. When you get inside the leader's mind, what do you notice they struggle with the most? What is something that you see
Yeah,
like over and over and over again and you go, "Yep, there it is again." And maybe it's what
yeah.
you already mentioned earlier.
Well, I think that's one of it. They're on autopilot and they have such big expectations of themselves. So one of my working definitions, because I have a podcast and I heard this from one of the people that I interviewed, is what is stress? It's unmet expectations.
Mhm.
So often with them,
I
it's
like
what are
that.
your expectations for yourself? And can we take the time and be clear about those expectations? But then you're communicating, and are you communicating your expectations enough to others? And so a lot of it is around being clear about what they want for themselves and being clear about what they're communicating with others.
And when you go back, I want to go back to the autopilot term. What is what do you mean by that? And I know what you mean they're on autopilot, but what are they on autopilot the most with?
Yes. So one is their communication. I would say two things, and I'm sure you see this communication, and they're just saying what's on the top of their head. They may not prepare as much as they should. And so that happens in these individual coaching sessions. Two is around accountability. And so I could go into any organization and say, here's the two things that are your main problems: communication accountability, and probably the third one would be developing your team and developing your direct reports. And so all three of those, communication, accountability, developing others, is at the consequence of having time. And they don't have time. And therefore, it's the first thing that kind of comes to their mind, what their boss, what their leader did with them in their training. And so it may not be, and often is not, a best practice.
So they truly are on autopilot and they just do what is a habit. And as I always say, do you act or react? So they're
Yes.
probably more in reactionary mode
Yes.
than actionary, if that's a word, action mode.
Yes. So you got it exactly. And so what they're not doing is reflecting and they are reacting. So basically I talk about, and you know this, you got stimulus and what most of us get, stimulus, response. And it's the same
Response,
response, stimulus, same response, stimulus, same response,
automatic. Yep. Automatic.
automatic. And so we're creating in our coaching, in our training, a gap so you get stimulus, you get some deeper thinking, some reflection, as you're saying, more acting than reacting, so you get a best response.
I like that. When I used to teach emotional intelligence all over the world. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is being able to hit pause
Right.
so that you don't, how do you, how do you get someone to do that? How do you get them to not, to pause long enough to think?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your thought there?
So basically, and we're both, fans of emotional intelligence. One of my books is Leading with Emotional Intelligence. And so what I like is the two sides of the equation that in the Daniel Goleman model, understanding yourself and managing yourself. That's under the self side, understanding others, managing others. But on the self side, you have to be aware of what are some of your triggers, what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and then how do you manage yourself to bring that about? What do you need to do to be your best? And so this may be one of the places to share this tool because you're a fan of emotional intelligence, is to get in a gap. First, you got to get in a gap and just pause. That was your question. So how do I kind of get in a gap and just pause? It helps if on the front side, you're aware of your strengths and you're aware of what you're trying to accomplish. So that'll help when it comes up to say, oh, this is one of those times. And then what do you do? So I have a tool called the Emotional Audit. And the way I've been hyping it is in 15 seconds, you can have more emotional intelligence. So first of all, it's creating the pause, it's getting that pause. And so how do you get the pause? You have to say, oh, I've been here before. Oh, I'm experiencing, this energy or this stress. And then there's 5 questions. You ask the question, you wait 3 seconds, notice what comes up in your mind. Something's going to pop up. And then you
You're
go
asking the question to yourself.
to yourself. Exactly. Now, leaders could also do this with somebody else. But first of all, it's pretty basic. And so they basically say, first question is, what am I thinking now? And it may be, this meeting's not going right, or so-and-so's got to stop talking, or, we're losing time. And is there a pattern in there? That's the self-awareness. It's not the first time they had this, what am I thinking now about the situation? Can they identify a pattern in that? So that's the first one. And then they just notice that. 3 seconds. Second one, what am I feeling right now? They do a body scan. I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm impatient. It's not the first time they felt that. Now they, again, I guess if they're triggered, they identified a pattern in thinking. They identified a pattern in feeling. That's important. As a coach, we say we may deconstruct a situation and walk through those questions. The third question, David, is really about meta attention. What am I trying to accomplish now? So just to back up, what am I thinking is metacognition.
Right.
What am I feeling is meta awareness. So kind of being aware of what you're aware of, being aware of what you're thinking. Third question, what am I trying to accomplish now is being aware of your attention. Okay, what am I trying to do here? There's not usually a pattern in the third question because every situation is different. The fourth question, I love what you said in your intro because the fourth question is a takeoff of your intro. How am I getting in my own way right now? That is a trigger, and that can be a pattern. I'm not saying my truth, or I'm speaking with a tone. Um, how are they getting in their own way? And so if they can identify a pattern in that one, so question one, thinking, question two, feeling, question four, how am I getting my way? Those should reveal a pattern. Again, 3 seconds. So now we're at the last question. Now that you got data about your thinking, data about what you're feeling, you're kind of clear about your meta attention, what you want, and you know how, oh, here I go again. I'm getting in my own way. So they catch it. And the last one is, what do I need to do now to be my best? And this used to be when I first created this, what do I need to do now differently? But just adding to be my best. It's like tuning up the AI prompt. What do I need
It's
to do now to be my best?
I'm here. It's how do I get to here?
Yeah.
How do I get even better?
Yeah. And so this again, and you just wait and kind of see what emerges. But in those 15 seconds, it's pause that autopilot response.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have to kind of catch it, and they can catch it when they see these patterns, and then they ask these questions.
One of the things, and I want to talk to you about this. One of the challenges that I've always seen, even in my own life, that I've had to work on and with clients I coach, is oftentimes we're trying to work on new behavior in the moment. And in my
Yeah.
analogy I use with sports, it'd be like you're a golfer and you're practicing your golf swing during the tournament. And or if you're a quarterback, you're practicing your
Right.
throw during the game. And if you look at how athletes perform, it's the repetition ahead of time over and over and over and over
Yes.
so that in that moment that they're able to perform. And I'll just the mental one that comes to mind. There's I think it's Odell Beckham or who is it? I don't know. There, and it's this one-handed. It was a couple years ago. It's a one-handed catch in the end zone, and he just flies out. He's got his arm out and he catches to make the touchdown.
Right.
And I was watching the game with a friend, and they go, "That's amazing," and I said, "He's probably practiced that over a
Yes.
thousand times."
Yes.
So the question is, as we look at creating change, we look at breaking a cycle, look at breaking a pattern, we look at being able to pause. How does an executive, how does someone go about that practice before the moment? Because if they wait till the moment, the
Right.
brain just takes over, the automatic part of the brain just takes
Yeah.
over, right?
Exactly.
And
Well,
then they're going to react the way they've always done it.
yeah. Well, I think some of it is going to happen first in these, what you can call these, using the football analogy, kind of the training sessions is in the coaching. So they're identifying the patterns. They're identifying what's going to be better. And I think in the coaching itself can create some new neural pathways. Oh, yeah, I always do that. Yeah, I've been doing that forever. And, us asking the powerful questions about, well, so what would you do different? And now they often hear themselves say, what would I do different than necessarily me saying it? And it creates an aha in their brain. And that's a neural pathway. Again, one time alone is not going to do it. But then the practice would be, can you do, let's say, for example, the one tool, the emotional audit. Could you do this once or twice in the morning? It's basically checking with you, especially if you're feeling tense. Okay, what is going on for me? So 15 seconds. No one's got time. So if you got something that's short, 15 seconds, and do that once or twice in the morning. Do that once or twice in the afternoon. Now you're back home with your kids or your significant other, and of course you're going to be aroused. Step back. What am I thinking? Oh, here we go again. What am I feeling? I'm upset. I'm irritated. What do I want? I want everybody to get along. How am I getting in my way? I'm either yelling or I'm not saying what I want, whatever the pattern is. What do I need to do differently? That pause can help them, and that's the practice.
And I think you hit on something, and I want to stress this for our listeners. Sometimes I think people create this separation between work and home, and they think, okay, I got to work on this at home at work because I'm this way with my team, my other leaders, my employees. The reality is there is no separation between work and home. For we're human beings,
Right.
and I think the best thing, and the example you gave is wonderful, that we should be practicing any of these things in our
Yeah.
whole life, like our kids, our spouse, our buddies, our neighbors,
Right.
our, right?
Oh, definitely. And as you're saying, I'm just reflecting, David. I know I'm the worst at home. I've been studying these things, for 30 years. I'm the worst at home, with my family. And so if you think about that for people that we're talking to, that's where they should be practicing because you
Oh
got
my
plenty
gosh.
of opportunities. Uh, you know, I remember when my daughter is younger, she's now getting her master's in psychology. But when she was younger, she would push my buttons, and then I would say something, and she would say, "Really good, Dad. Really good." And you are an expert in emotional intelligence. It's
Oh
like
my
taking
gosh. Right back in your face.
taking the knife and twisting it. So I would say to our audience, they should practice these at home because it's going to be, I think when you think about the game is challenging at home. It'll help them bring that into whether boardroom or their
Yeah.
executive team.
Yeah. I talk about congruency, and I talk about how just what you said, I would talk and teach stuff, but then I would go home and I would get triggered either by a friend or a family
Yeah, yeah.
member or my own family or whatever. And I realized it was this moment that it was a wake up call to me. And I thought, I'm not being congruent. What I am coaching, what I'm teaching, I'm not living. And I did
Yeah.
this same thing with empathy, talk about empathy, and then I wasn't in. There's a question coming here, but I realized I was not congruent, and it actually made me a better human when I spoke about it and I taught it and
Yes.
I teach it. So the
Mm.
question is that something that someone could do where it's like when they start paying it forward, they start teaching
Yes.
others.
That's
Is
beautiful.
that a good strategy?
I think it's a really good one because I probably haven't used that as much. I have a series of tools like we talked about, but I think I have them teach that, a leader teach that to the team. But I think going home and teaching that
Yeah.
to their family and especially around emotional intelligence. I'm in preparing to do this TED Talk about that. And you think about with youth, the earlier they can learn this, and I'm sure you've heard this when you talk about emotional intelligence, people in their 40s and 50s, they will tell me, I wish I would have known this in my 20s. It would
All
have
the time.
saved me.
Well, it's the whole idea of wisdom. Sometimes we don't get it till we're older, and then we look back and go, "Well, wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the time. Hey, I want to go back to something you said earlier. Um, you said you go into an organization, you see communication problems, developing their team and accountability. My question is, how aware are, and I want you to be honest with me here, how aware are most leaders that those are
Yeah.
really the problems, or are they just are
Yeah.
they focused
So,
on a symptom, and that is the root cause? Do they, I mean, are you having to hold up a mirror right in their face? Like, tell me a little bit
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I would say here's four key challenges. You hit on it that I would say why what you're doing and why what I'm doing is so important. So the first one is everybody has a high level of emotional distress. We know from Gallup about 75% of people need more help. So we're feeling more anxiety, more depression, more loan. Everything is more. On my podcast, I talk about everything's more. So you got more distress. But your point with all this, we are less self-aware than we think. Tara Urich has done some great research. We all think, oh, I'm like 85%. If you say, how aware are you? Oh, yeah, 85%. I'm aware. I'm self-aware. The reality is it's about 15%. So you got all this stuff going on, and then we're not that self-aware. And then you add the third challenge, which we already talked about, is we're on autopilot. So you got all the stress, you're not aware, you're on autopilot, and then you don't have what I love is the slow thinking. Your best decisions, unless you're on the front line, in the emergency room or a firefighter, you got time to think. You don't have to be on autopilot. And a good way for our leaders is to ask questions of people. And that's where, if you talk about the curiosity, if they can say, oh, okay, I'm about ready to respond, asking questions is a pause for you, for the leader, because now you can ask a couple questions. And often when they ask questions and someone says what they are going to do, or, what are you thinking about that? It's the same thing the leader was going to think about. So the other side of this is that what's the leadership default is to find fault. The leadership default is to find fault, and they immediately go into what's wrong. And if they can stop and ask questions, the curiosity, so what have you tried? What else are you thinking? That's where there's a coaching tool that asks these strategic questions. It allows them, as they're asking questions, listening, to be thinking. Oh, that's what I was going to tell them to do. Wow, they already did that. Good thing I didn't put my foot in my mouth.
And I love that is such a great line. The leader's default is to find fault. I love that. So are leaders, especially with your coaching, are they self-aware enough to come to you and say, I got a problem with my team and people and communication, or are they coming to you with, hey, we got, they're finding fault. We got a problem over here, 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 and here. And
Yeah,
it's the whole idea of, you point the finger, you
that's
got three pointing back. What are you actually
yeah,
seeing in the years you've been doing this?
yeah. Great questions. And if I had to put a number to it, when we talk in numbers, it's helpful. I would say only about 25 or 30% are coming and saying, I have some issues that I got to work on. Probably the greater majority is, I have a new team, or I'm having issues with the board or with my executive team. So I would think the initial one, it always comes back to themselves, but the initial one more than likely is something outside of them. And from the work you do and I do, what do? We bring it back on the inside. What are you thinking about that? What are you doing? And that's where they can make the change, biggest change, or at least first and second changes.
That's kind of normal how humans are. It's always someone else's issue.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
in a
exactly.
relationship, it's them. It's never me. It's the employee that doesn't fit in. It's them. And I think that's the hardest thing is for someone to have that
Yeah,
emotional intelligence to literally look in the mirror. Why do you think they don't do that more often? What do
yeah.
you think holds them back
I
from
think
looking in the mirror?
yep. I think it's that sense of vulnerability. You have a couple of the buzzwords: vulnerability, imposter syndrome. And what do we know?
You
That
go.
imposter, that imposter syndrome. Actually, these folks can be very successful because they work hard because they think they're going to find out I don't really know what I'm doing. But what's the critical factor? Working hard. It's not what you're thinking about, but as a consequence of that imposter, they are working hard. And then they may come to me or you if it's the 30% because they're anxious about something or
Mm,
it's not working. And so the good ones say, yeah, I need to take a look at that.
got it. Got it. So now I want to reflect to you and looking at your own life, career, where you're at today. Was there a time you had to look in the mirror and you either felt, to your point, imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
or a time you looked in the mirror and something held you back and you really had to
Yeah.
create some kind of a breakthrough to move
Yeah.
forward?
So a couple of these, and it goes back kind of, why I'm in this field. In our podcast, my co-host just interviewed me, and it was really good. First time in 20 years, we kind of got in depth. So there's two things that come to mind. Why am I in this path? One was in college. I went with my girlfriend up to Montreal. So I went to school, back east in Connecticut. And I just remember I was thinking this should have been great. She was a beautiful woman. We had time off. We're in a brand new city. And I was blasé. And I was thinking, and I could see, I felt like what I thought about like my dad was. My dad was very smart, but not emotional. And I said, here I am in this situation. I should be engendering more joy. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little blasé. So that was one that I was going, I wasn't in touch or with internally the joy, the satisfaction, the excitement. And so I think, because a lot of this was, I was in my head. And so whatever was kind of below my neck around the feelings was somewhat muted. So that was one.
And
Oh,
did you move through that? Did you work
yes,
through it?
yes. You see me today, but so yes. So basically I got involved in, I was a psychology major. I got involved in a bunch of groups in group therapy. And so that was the first one. And then the second one, why being on autopilot, and I'll make this short. One of my first jobs out of college, I worked in a state institution for adolescents, and we had a behavior mod program. You had all these rules, and there's a lot of inner city kids. The last line for them in the state of Connecticut. And so one student refused a timeout. And so as the rules went, if they refused a timeout, which is a half hour, look at your behavior, then they would, if they refused it, they'd have 24 hours lockup. If I had to call security, it was 48 hours lockup. So there was a big scene, and I'll just call him Tony. And there was a timeout offense, and he basically refused the timeout. And then I obviously, here's how crazy it is. If he's not going to go in a room for a half hour, what's going to make him go upstairs and get locked up for 24 hours? So I call security. Security comes. We carry him up. He's trying to kick me, and we throw him into, it was a cell, a regular cell door with a 2x4. And I'm only 23, 24 years old, so I don't know anything. And so he's locked up. 10 minutes later, he calls my name, and I come up. And meanwhile, I'm the only staff with 20 other acting out adolescents. I go upstairs to let him out, and he says, I'm not going back in there, and you can't make me. So basically, I kind of put it to guide him with my hand. And what happens, I always does, he pushes me, I get him in a headlock. We race down the hallway. I throw him in the room. We both fall. Whoever gets up faster is going to lock the other one in the cell. So I got up faster because I was more agile, put the 2x4, locked him up, and then walked out. 10 minutes later, David, I smell smoke. So Tony lit his mattress on fire because he had so much anger. He was out of balance. He was dysregulated. And I wasn't any hero here either because, what did I do? I resorted to putting him in a headlock. And so that was the second one, like, wow. Because of his stinking thinking, and I couldn't think of anything else to do either, my stinking thinking, it took me on this path to learn more about the emotional affective domain. We didn't have the term then, but emotional intelligence.
Wow. When did you get to the point where you said, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to make this my life, my living.
Yeah. Um, as far as emotional intelligence, I think this was my master's program, brought me out here to Santa Barbara, as you see. It was confluent education. Two things come together as a confluence. Well, thinking and feeling. We got thinking wired. It was all about feeling. And so that is what got me excited. I did my master's thesis on these outward bound programs where
Right.
emotions are high. You familiar with outward bound?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it started there in Connecticut and with adolescents. Then I worked at Outward Bound. I worked here in Colorado. I worked at the Colorado Outward Bound School in my doctoral program, but it was designing affective, emotional intelligence curriculum because so much was happening. We didn't know what people didn't know what to do with it.
Were you at the time, were you an employee of Outward Bound, or were you independent? You're just you.
Yeah. So I was independent. These Outward Bound programs, I'd go back during the summer. I was an educator. I worked as a counselor in the Virgin Islands for a couple of years. And then I went back to school in Colorado, University of Northern Colorado, got my doctorate. That's also then on the weekends, I would do these Outward Bound programs. So here I was learning about the 50-minute hour, the traditional model, but all the change happened in the outdoors. So that idea of getting people emotionally involved and having these experiences and then learning from their experiences.
That's really cool. That's really cool. What, as you look at going forward, working with executives, working with leaders, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge that they're going to be dealing with related
I
to emotional
think,
intelligence, obviously?
linking to emotional intelligence, yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing as is getting time to focus on themselves. So really the biggest challenge is time. Nobody has time. And I tell HR directors, I'm sure you had this, I said, unless me or someone like me or David's in front of them, they don't have the time to think deeply. And I got this person I got to empower. What should I do? How do I speak to them? What are their strengths? All those things, they don't have the time to do it. And that's why they're on autopilot. So I
And are,
think, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest issue is time. But not only time, then they get into, well, what am I supposed to do? So a lot of my work now is I have these series of tools called turbulence tools for moment mastery. Give them some simple tools to say, oh, let me use that tool because it's quick, it's proven, and I don't have to kind of be on autopilot.
I like that. Are you seeing, because you've been doing this for a number of years, are you seeing generational issues of like the younger leaders versus older? Is it any difference, or is it the
Yeah.
same problem, different year?
Yeah, I think the problems are pretty much the same. I mean, those are, anybody in an organization around leadership, they're trying to delegate, they're trying to give feedback, they're trying to coach. But the younger generation, and you've probably seen this too, just it's been documented has less emotional intelligence. And in general, some new research just came out that this is about the fifth year in a row that global emotional intelligence has continued to drop. So it's about 5 points lower than it was about 5 years ago. And this is a group called 6 Seconds. They just came out with some of their research and they're calling it an emotional recession. We don't know what to do with it. One, we don't have the time. And two, if we did have the time, what am I supposed to do? I have all these emotions. What am I supposed to do with it?
And so what's going to be what is or will be the impact of this?
Well, I think the impact is you see now divisiveness, aggression. And so anger is a really top level emotion. It's not getting under to what's below that despair, inadequacy, dissatisfaction. Anger just pops up. And so I think that's where we're at. And think about this idea of when you get a group together and teams together and how do they get past the disagreements? And I'm sure the work you do, I do, a lot of this is getting a team to be able to be more constructive, productive. How do they disagree? How do you get the ideas on the table versus people thinking that they're going to get into arguments or I can't disagree with my boss and therefore I don't, a lot of the good ideas aren't on the table.
Right. There's either blame or acquiesce, right? Is one
Yeah.
extreme or the other potentially. Um, as we come to the end here, one of the second to last question here is, when are you on autopilot? I know you
That's a,
talked about at home. I know you talked about at home, but
yeah.
when else are you on autopilot as you
Well, I
reflect
think,
in your current life?
yeah, I think me, like probably most people, probably most of the time, I'm on autopilot and taking time to really think in the morning. I'm an avid meditator, have been, since college. And so it kind of breaks it. But I think I'm no different than anyone else. I'd say my patterns, like often will kind of fall into some of the same ruts. So maybe one of them is it's easy for me to get excited about the shiny object. Uh, and I can, I'm a lot more excited and passionate about what's new and about what's learning. What's on autopilot for me probably is putting off things that I should do that's boring, uh, that's mundane. And, so I pay a consequence for that because I'm going for the exciting piece.
Yeah. And just like executives, until the consequence is big enough, oftentimes we don't change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got
Yeah.
it.
All right, last question. What is the question you wish people would ask you, but they don't, but you secretly really wish people would?
Yeah. Good question. So maybe this is the first thing that pops in my mind is the autopilot. If I thought about it more, but it's a good question. Um, so why should I listen to you, really? I got everything going on. Why should I take time and be with you and listen to you? Now, if they ask that question, I have a lot of evidence based, and I have some experience, but I think that would be one question of what could be many.
And the answer would be,
Well,
and
I
then the
probably would.
evidence based and like, so let's say I asked you, I said, so why should I listen to you?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
an
great.
executive, I'm a CEO, I'm running a company. Yeah,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence,
So,
blah, blah, blah. That's soft and squishy. And
so here's what I would say. So David, um, are you interested in being someone who's in the top 10% in
mm-hmm,
your field?
mm-hmm.
You'd say, yeah. Do you know how to go about it? Are
Work
you in,
harder.
well, yeah. Are you interested to go beyond work harder? Are you interested in hearing the actual behaviors and the actual things that people in the top 10% are doing that most people aren't? So in a way, it's some of the keys to the kingdom. And there's some simple behaviors that you could do in the moment, but you basically have to learn it and then practice it. And so those are some of the skills that you don't have to read all the books and all that. I've done that. And I've kind of brought in some of the research so you can just look at what's the best practice and try it.
Accelerate it, right? You can accelerate
Accelerate.
it,
Good
right?
word. Yes.
It's why you hire a coach. It's why you
Right.
it's why you have someone, it's why athletes hire someone who's, have someone who's better than they are to help them get better, right? Got to
Yeah.
accelerate it. Otherwise, it takes a lifetime to learn stuff. So,
Yeah.
anyway, well, if someone wants to learn more, get in touch with you, learn more, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah.
Or if they're
The best
interested
way
in your
is
books, etc.
Yeah, then everything's on the website. And the website is drrellynadler.com. DR for Dr. Relly, Reloi, Nadler.com. There's some free ebooks there, why everybody needs a coach. We have about over 600 podcasts and there's links to that. And, there's a lot of free things. I have a blog on Psychology Today. They can tap onto that.
Love it. Love it. And I'll make sure I put links in the show notes for everyone. Well, whoops. Hang on. Lost my hearing. I can't hear. There we go. Relly, thank you. You're awesome. I thank you for bringing your insights. Really valuable, I believe, for executives and anyone who's listening to really up their game. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks, David. Great questions. I appreciate it. having the
My
opportunity.
pleasure. My pleasure. So, folks, if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, share it. We appreciate you taking the time to listen. This is Inside the Leader's Mind, and I'm David Susan. And thanks, and we'll talk to you next time. Ciao.